Hi, and welcome to the Analyzing Results case. This case was donated by a student who went for a job interview at a large investment bank in the city. He was one of many candidates invited back on the second interview, and on the second interview, they were asked to complete this financial analysis case to determine whether or not they had the skills necessary to compete for this investment bank job. So after the second round of interview with the Excel case, only about less than 10% were invited back for a third interview. And then the student was able to beat out probably over 1,000 applicants, over 100, when I say applicants, people who submitted resumes, then probably over 50 other applicants who received first round interviews, and finally on the last round of interviews they did procure the job. But what I found interesting is that the investment bank no longer really would believe the skills stated on resumes. So they had a number of little mini tests, including this case, to really see if the student had the skills that they needed for the investment bank. So in this case, which I'm going to walk you through part of this case to help you get started, Investment Analysis Incorporated. So this is a technology-driven research firm that's going to aggregate data about technology companies to help outside, say, hedge fund managers to decide whether or not to buy or sell a stock. So the purpose of this assignment is to gauge your ability to analyze a data set and express your findings clearly and concisely. So here are the parameters. One, the company you're going to be analyzing is called Chips. So this is basically a company I made up that is publicly traded and sells goods across 3 different websites: PC chips, Apple chips, and cell phone chips. So these are computer chips that they sell. So their product line is, the item numbers are broken down into 3 sets. So any item number between 1,000 to 1,050 would be a PC chip. 1,051 to 1,300 would be an Apple chip, and 1,301 above would be a cell phone chip. So that's how they break out the products that they make. So they're going to report their results for the most recent quarter, which would be Q4 2017. So Wall Street is expecting Q4 17 year-over-year growth in gross profit to be in line with last quarter's growth. Okay. So this is something you should talk about in the executive summary. What does the growth look like in sales and profits and profit margins between quarters? So the data here, the attached spreadsheet has the data here, and it contains online sales data that we're going to aggregate from the 3 websites from Q1, quarter 1, 2015 to quarter 4, 2017. So create a quarter year summary for the data. So I gave you, here's the quarter year summary sheet that I actually gave you the format. And then create a customer analysis. Here's the customer analysis tab. Who are the 10 biggest customers in sales? What percentage of total sales does the 10 largest customers have? Do the same for profits. In your assignment, create an executive summary to review and provide buy or sell recommendations for chips based on your financial analysis. Okay, so let's look at this. I give you an example here. Here's an example of what your example summary page should look like once it's filled out. So just formatting and what the layout should look like. The customer analysis page is blank. This is where you could use, say, pivot tables or other tools to put together, analyze the quarterly data in any way that you thought would be valuable for the company. Okay, so this would be your quarter year summary report that you're going to fill in using the data here. You're going to complete this summary, and when you're done, it should look something like this. The numbers will not match. This is just an example with no formulas, but you have to figure out the best way to get the data into this format for revenues, costs, and profits. And then once you have the data in this format, then you can use that to talk about for the executive summary. So let's go to the sales data tab. So in this data tab, most columns here are filled out, except I want you to, in this one column, we want to put in the website that the product is attached to. So to do that, you should use an if statement. So use the ifs, because we're going to have 3 tests here. So the first test is if B2 is greater than 1301, then we're going to call this cell phone chips. And then 2, if B2 is greater than 1051, then we're going to say Apple chips. Third condition, if B2 is greater than 1000, then this would be PC chips. Okay, so you see how it's building the nested if statement above here? So basically when you use this formula builder for if statements, it just will create the nested if for you. Okay, and where did I get these ranges from? Of course, it's from the memo. So in the memo here, they give you the item breakdown, and that's what I used to create this if statement. And then when you pull this down, you'll see that it's going to change, and you can double check if it's actually working. And here we could see that once it goes Apple chips, cell phone chips, yes, it's actually working. So this is a quick way to get the website associated with the item number. Okay, let's move over to quarter. So how are we going to get these quarters? So we want to know which date. So a quarter is, the year is broken out into 4 quarters. So every 3 months is a quarter. So anything in January, February, or March would be considered quarter 1. So how do we get this date convert into quarters? Well, one thing you can do is you could do something which I call a roundup. So what I'm going to do is go to my formulas here. I'm going to search for roundup. So I'm going to use roundup, and I'm going to round up this date here. But what I'm going to do though is I'm going to put in this formula, I'm going to say month. I'm going to put month in there first. And then what I want to do is I want to divide by 3 and then comma 0, because I want the digits to be I don't want any points past the decimal point. Okay, so by rounding it to 0 digits, if it's 1.33, it's going to round it to 1. So let me enter, see if this works. Okay, and I'm going to just copy this down. So yes, so this is in the 4th quarter. Okay, so I can just do a double check, 4th quarter, 1st quarter, 2nd quarter, 3rd quarter. Okay, so it worked. So that's a good way I found to create quarters. And if you're still not sure, I left a note here that shows you the breakdown between months and quarters. Okay, so the year, we've done this before. We could use the year formula. So just type in year, and then we will off the date, done, and this will give us the year. So it breaks out the year from the date, and now we want to do the quarter. So we want to combine the quarter and the year. So I left a hint here about how you can combine, say, Q with information. So I'm going to just insert that formula up here. Okay, so let me delete that. Okay, so I built the formula in here where I'm going to join the text. So whenever you use text, you have to use these quotation marks to put the text in. Then I'm going to join it with and. I'm going to say and K2, which is a 1. And I'm going to put in the quotations to put the dash, and then end L2. And L2 is the year. So you can kind of build this formula out, and it works pretty well. So again, and you can do this with anything. If you wanted to say QTR and quarter and dash, but you got to put it in the parentheses if you want the text. If you want the text to show, and then I could say and the year. So I can also do it like that if I want the quarter here. And if I don't like the quarter right next to the 1, I can put a space right after the R, like that, and could look like this. So it's just showing you that you could just use those simple skills that we learned in this class, using this and to join information in different cells and this text to kind of format it. Okay, so that would be the way to complete these 3 columns and the website. So that's how you could use your Excel skills to quickly put this information in. And this is what, when the student took this for the investment bank, he was timed. So why most of the students who took the exam failed is because they took too much time, because they didn't know these shortcuts to quickly break out the quarter or the year. They were doing it, excuse me. They were trying to do things like sort, and then put the information in, doing longer solutions to get the data solved. Okay, so once you have the data here, using, say, Control A, highlight the whole area, you can play around with inserting a pivot table if you wanted to. And then once you have the pivot table, you can do, as you know, you can do all sorts of things where I could go by customer, put customer here, and then I could do by website, but we don't want count, we want sum. And what are we summing though? Maybe we're summing total sales. So this is a way to quickly organize some of the data depending on how you want to manipulate it. So you can just look at product or customer. So that's just one idea, but somehow you're going to have to take this data and then summarize it into these fields. Probably a sum if would work pretty well, because you could sum on the quarter and the name if you rename this. So you could kind of play around with that. And so this is my quick 15-minute explanation of this case. So the real work, this was, of course, these are maybe been a little bit difficult. So I gave you a heads up on how to do that. You should have no problem summarizing the data in here, especially since I gave you an example of what that should look like. Now, the harder part becomes when you put together the customer analysis here, where you're going to use this area to put charts and graphs and tables and then write up your executive summary. And if you can want to play around with the pivot tables as a way of organizing or reviewing or analyzing the data, that will probably be a good thing too. Okay, so good luck in finishing this case, and I'll talk to you soon.